A guy turned in front of me and I hit him at about 70 miles an hour. So I got launched. I crushed his windshield in with my head, and then I went flying up in the air afterwards, knocked me out of my shoes. I mean, a proper accident. And I actually thought that was it.
A revelation from the life of one of Hollywood's most celebrated icons has sent shockwaves through the entertainment world and beyond. After decades of red carpets, flashing cameras, and celebrated performances, George Clooney's life at 64 reveals a series of tragedies so profound that even fans struggle to comprehend them. Behind the charm and the Oscars lies a narrative of pain, resilience, and near misses that shaped the man we thought we knew. So, what heartbreaking truths has George Clooney carried in silence all these years? Today, we uncover the story the world rarely sees: the trial of youth. Long before George Clooney became the silver screen icon known for his effortless charm, his dazzling smile, and the quiet magnetism that captivates millions, he faced a challenge that would test him in ways fame never could. It was middle school, a time when the world feels both impossibly large and unrelentingly cruel. For most kids, adolescence is a minefield of awkwardness, fleeting friendships, and the endless search for identity. But for George, it became something far more personal, far more isolating. At this tender age, he was diagnosed with Bell's palsy, a medical condition that partially paralyzes the face. The sudden onset of the condition left one side of his face immobilized. A smile that had once come naturally was suddenly asymmetrical. A casual expression now required effort and careful calculation. For a boy already navigating the treacherous social dynamics of middle school, this physical change felt catastrophic. Children, as children often do, noticed the difference immediately. Innocent curiosity quickly turned into mockery. Whispers, giggles, and pointed stares became part of his daily reality. Lunchtime and the playground transformed into stages of quiet humiliation. Simple acts like speaking, laughing, or even just looking in a mirror became fraught with self-consciousness. For an adult, it may seem trivial, almost laughable, compared to the pressures of life on a global stage, ma'am. But for a young George Clooney, the experience was nothing short of devastating. He later reflected on this period as the worst of his life, a time when he felt vulnerable, exposed, and painfully aware of how different he was from his peers. Each day carried the weight of isolation, and every interaction seemed like a subtle reminder of his condition. It was a crucible of adolescence, a moment when self-doubt could have easily consumed him, shaping him into someone timid or withdrawn. And yet, in that struggle, a seed was planted, a quiet resilience that would come to define him. Clooney didn't allow the teasing, the stares, or the years of uncertainty to break him. Instead, he began to cultivate an inner strength, a determination that would later carry him through far greater trials than the cruel jabs of middle school classmates. That early confrontation with vulnerability taught him patience, empathy, and the importance of perseverance. It was a harsh but formative lesson. Life would not always be fair, but survival depended on the strength of character, adaptability, and an unshakable belief in oneself. Bell's palsy eventually receded, and the partial paralysis faded within a year. To outsiders, the condition vanished as if it had never been there. But for George, the experience left a permanent imprint, not on his face, but on his psyche. He emerged from this challenge more self-aware, more disciplined, and more capable of handling adversity with grace. The boy who had been mocked and taunted learned to laugh, to carry himself with dignity, and to face the world on his own terms. This episode, while painful, became a rehearsal for the hardships of life that lay ahead. The relentless pressures of Hollywood, personal loss, public scrutiny, and the inevitable tragedies that would test him again and again. In retrospect, George Clooney's encounter with Bell's palsy was more than a childhood affliction. It was an early training ground for resilience, a formative trial that honed his capacity for courage, patience, and emotional strength. It was the first of many moments in a life that would oscillate between triumph and heartbreak. A life where the ability to endure and emerge stronger would become not just a tool for survival, but a foundation for greatness. From those early years of personal struggle arose a man who could navigate the harsh lights of fame, the scrutiny of the public, and the inevitable tragedies of life, all while maintaining the charm, wit, and grace that the world now celebrates. George Clooney's childhood was marked by the struggles of Bell's palsy, forcing him to face ridicule at a tender age. But did life have an even greater tragedy waiting for him? One far harsher than the condition itself? Let's find out. A ride that almost ended it all. In the summer of 2018, George Clooney, known as much for his fearless spirit off-screen as for his on-screen charm, faced a brush with death that would leave a lasting mark on him. An avid motorcyclist, Clooney often embraced the freedom and thrill of riding, the wind in his hair, and the open road stretching endlessly ahead. But on that fateful morning, in Olbia, Sardinia, the exhilaration of the ride turned into a nightmare that would haunt him for years to come. According to reports, Clooney's motorcycle was struck by a Mercedes during an early morning ride. The impact was violent. He was thrown high into the air, over the top of the car, before crashing onto the pavement. Passers-by might have assumed the worst, and the press, though widely reporting the incident, did not capture the full severity of what occurred. Grant Heslov, a producer on the set of Catch-22, described the accident bluntly, insisting it had been much worse than the press understood. The truth was chilling. Clooney had survived what could have been a fatal encounter with only a handful of physical injuries. Remarkably, the actor emerged from the crash with relatively minor trauma. He sustained bruising and injuries to his pelvis. Injuries that, though painful, could have been catastrophic under slightly different circumstances. He was quickly hospitalized and released, but the ordeal did not end there. Clooney remained under careful medical observation for almost a month, a period that tested not only his physical recovery, but also his mental and emotional resilience. What could have been a routine hospital stay turned into a time of reflection. A moment for a man used to performing daring stunts on screen, to confront the fragility of life off-screen. The incident left an indelible mark on Clooney, haunting him in ways that went far beyond the physical pain. In later interviews, he spoke candidly about the lingering effects of the crash, confessing that it was a near-death experience that forced him to reassess his relationship with risk and mortality. The actor, known for his suave demeanor and unflappable charisma, revealed a rare vulnerability as he admitted that he would be giving up motorcycle riding for the foreseeable future. "If you get 9 lives," he said, reflecting on the sheer luck that allowed him to survive unscathed, "I got all of them used up at once." Those words, simple yet profound, conveyed the gravity of the moment, a realization that life could pivot on the narrowest of margins, and that even a man seemingly untouchable in Hollywood could face his mortality with stark clarity. For George Clooney, the motorcycle crash was far more than a simple accident. It was a stark encounter with fate. What began as a routine ride, a moment of joy and freedom, turned into a life-altering ordeal in an instant. The incident forced him to confront the fragility of life, the suddenness of danger, and the critical need to weigh thrill against safety. Even a man familiar with risk and adrenaline realized that some boundaries, once crossed, leave lasting marks. not only on the body, but deep within the mind and spirit, forever reshaping perspective. In the aftermath, the world saw George Clooney continuing to work, perform, and live, seemingly untouched by the incident. But behind the calm, there was an unshakable awareness, a reminder that life, for all its glory and adventure, is fragile. And for Clooney, the Sardinia motorcycle crash would forever remain a haunting lesson in survival, humility, and the price of living too close to the edge. George Clooney survived a near-death accident on a film set. But what was his life like before fame? Were his struggles only on the movie set? Or did he face hardships long before that? Now, let's explore how George Clooney's early struggles forged a resilient star. Humble beginnings. Long before the bright lights of Hollywood, the flashing cameras, and the applause of fans, George Clooney was simply a young man trying to find his place in the world. He enrolled at the University of Cincinnati, believing that education could open doors to a promising future. Yet, life had different plans. Clooney never finished his degree, a choice that might have seemed like failure to some. But for him, it became the beginning of a different kind of learning, an education shaped by experience, resilience, and the challenges of the real world, lessons no classroom could ever teach. Determined to make ends meet, Clooney threw himself into a series of ordinary, sometimes grueling jobs. He sold women's shoes, knocking on doors and pitching products as an insurance salesman. He stocked shelves in stores, worked in construction, and even spent time cutting tobacco in the fields. Each task, each laborious hour, was far removed from the glamour of Hollywood, yet it taught him lessons in patience, discipline, and perseverance, qualities that no classroom could have fully imparted. These experiences exposed him to the realities of hard work, of rejection, and of the humility required to keep moving forward even when the world offered no applause. But it wasn't only the practical lessons of odd jobs that shaped Clooney's character. He had already endured personal challenges that would have broken many others. His early bout with Bell's palsy, a condition that temporarily paralyzed his face, left him exposed to ridicule and bullying from peers. The pain of that experience, the isolation, the mockery, the feeling of being different, instilled in him a quiet inner strength. He learned how to withstand judgment, to hold his head high, and to find resilience in the face of adversity. These lessons, learned in the crucible of both physical and emotional struggle, became tools he would carry into the higher-stakes arenas of life that awaited him. George Clooney's early work was far from glamorous, yet it shaped the man he would become. Every job, every challenge, built resilience and taught lessons that would later define his career. Selling shoes honed his charm and taught him to read people, skills that translated effortlessly to acting. Door-to-door insurance pitches toughened him against constant rejection, preparing him for the brutal world of auditions. Working construction and cutting tobacco instilled patience, persistence, and respect for hard labor. These experiences grounded him, giving him the inner strength and adaptability that would carry him from humble beginnings to Hollywood stardom. In a world obsessed with overnight fame, George Clooney's early life tells a very different story. Before the glitz and glamour, he faced ordinary hardships, moments of embarrassment, and relentless challenges that would have discouraged many. Each setback, from childhood struggles to early failures, shaped him, teaching patience, persistence, and resilience. The young Clooney learned to endure discomfort, to keep moving forward, and to turn obstacles into lessons. These formative experiences became the foundation for his remarkable ability to navigate Hollywood's unpredictable and often unforgiving landscape, proving that true stars are forged long before the spotlight ever finds them. These formative experiences, Working multiple jobs, navigating financial pressures, and overcoming personal adversity did more than just prepare Clooney for survival. They forged a young man with the emotional intelligence, humility, and toughness necessary to face challenges far beyond what most could imagine. By the time he stepped onto the stages and sound stages that would define his career, George Clooney was not just an actor. He was a product of life's most relentless lessons, ready to meet fame, tragedy, and triumph, with the same unwavering strength that had carried him from those early, unassuming days. He went to university, but didn't graduate before becoming a star. But what price did fame come with? And how hard were the challenges he faced? Now, let's unravel George Clooney's physical struggles and personal hardships. A year of unimaginable pain. George Clooney, a name that evokes Hollywood charm, elegance, and on-screen heroics, has faced struggles far beyond the glitz and glamour. While the world sees his wit, charisma, and effortless star power, few understand the deep physical and emotional battles he has endured behind the scenes. One of the most terrifying moments occurred during the filming of the 2005 political thriller Syriana. What was meant to be dramatic tension on camera quickly turned into a real-life nightmare for Clooney, revealing the hidden costs and dangers of a life spent chasing cinematic perfection. During the filming of a particularly intense torture scene, Clooney suffered a catastrophic injury. He tore the lining around his spinal cord. The actor later recounted the experience in a chilling interview with NPR, describing the pain as so excruciating that it drove him to the edge of despair. Before the surgery, "It was the most unbearable pain I've ever been through," Clooney admitted. "Literally where you'd go, well, you'll have to kill yourself at some point. You can't live like this." For a man whose life seems so effortless on screen, the revelation was a stark reminder that even icons are not immune to unimaginable suffering. Yet the spinal injury was only one part of what Clooney describes as perhaps the darkest chapter of his personal life. That same year, tragedy seemed to follow him relentlessly. His brother-in-law passed away suddenly from a heart attack at the age of 45, a loss that shook him to his core. Soon after, his grandmother fell, breaking her hip, a fall that proved fatal. As if the weight of human grief wasn't enough, Clooney also endured a devastating loss in the animal companion closest to his heart. His dog was killed by a rattlesnake, a bizarre and cruel end that added yet another layer of sorrow to his already turbulent year. Looking back, George Clooney described this chapter to NPR as probably the worst year personally I have ever had. It was a relentless storm of misfortune that would have tested anyone, no matter how strong. A sudden, life-changing spinal injury left him in unbearable pain, while the deaths of his brother-in-law and grandmother compounded the grief. Even the shocking loss of his cherished dog added to the weight of despair. This harrowing period pushed him to his limits, forcing deep reflection, shaping not only the man behind the camera, but also the resilience and depth that define the star we know today. Despite the life-altering injury and the heavy emotional toll it brought, George Clooney's story is far from just one of despair. It stands as a powerful testament to human resilience and the ability to endure even the harshest trials. The spinal injury demanded surgery, long rehabilitation, and painstaking recovery, forcing him to face both physical weakness and intense mental strain. Yet, through all this pain and vulnerability, Clooney continued to work, to create, and to engage with life fully, a quiet, unwavering display of courage hidden behind Hollywood's dazzling lights, reminding us of strength in the face of suffering. This chapter in Clooney's life reveals a side rarely seen by the public. the fragile human core beneath the polished exterior. The pain, grief, and near-tragic moments of that year are a stark contrast to the charm and confidence he exudes on the red carpet. They remind us that fame does not shield anyone from life's cruel twists. Clooney endured the unthinkable and emerged not only as a celebrated actor, but as a man who understands the depths of suffering, and, more importantly, the strength required to survive it. George could not prevent a near-fatal injury on set, nor could he avoid losing his brother-in-law and grandmother in the same year. But were there struggles he might have escaped? And what price did they come with? Now, let's explore George Clooney's early brushes with substances and youthful indulgences. Hollywood experiments. Before George Clooney became the Hollywood icon known for his charm, wit, and undeniable talent, he was a young actor navigating the chaotic, seductive world of 1980s Hollywood, a time when excess often danced hand-in-hand with ambition. Clooney has been unusually candid about this period, sharing openly that he experimented with substances while trying to find his place in the cutthroat entertainment industry. In a revealing interview with Esquire, he admitted that he tried substances and other substances as a young man, exploring the intoxicating allure of fame and rebellion that so many of his contemporaries also faced. Yet, despite dabbling in these substances, Clooney insists that such indulgences never became a controlling factor in his life. "I used to make jokes about how I did too many substances," he explained, "but the truth is, it was never a big issue for me at all." These words reveal a striking balance. Clooney was both curious and experimental, yet never reckless, understanding, even in his youth, the importance of moderation and self-control. Unlike many in the Hollywood of that era who fell victim to addiction, Clooney's experiences remained fleeting moments, more reflective of youthful exploration than life-altering dependency. Among his stories, Clooney recalls it in particular as a substance that left him unimpressed. More than a decade ago, he recounted an extraordinary experience involving weed brownies that illustrates not only the quirks of his experimentation, but also his capacity for vivid storytelling. Clooney and a group of friends, around 20 in total, decided to indulge while watching the timeless film The Wizard of Oz, accompanied by the psychedelic soundtrack of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. What followed was an unforgettable, surreal evening. "They were fucked," Clooney said with characteristic candor. I think, all of us, there was like 20 of us in the screening room, and the movie ended, and we sat there without speaking for like hours." The image he paints is both humorous and slightly disorienting, a snapshot of the bizarre, mind-altering adventures that can accompany early Hollywood life. Yet even in this haze, Clooney recognized that it was not my substances, a testament to his self-awareness and discernment, even when immersed in the chaotic, boundary-pushing culture around him. This glimpse into Clooney's early life illuminates a broader truth. Even before achieving fame and critical acclaim, he was learning about limits, choices, and consequences in a world that often blurred these boundaries. The 1980s Hollywood scene was notorious for excess, and navigating it safely required a certain level of judgment, a skill that would serve Clooney well as his career soared. These early encounters with substances, though fleeting, helped shape a young actor who would later confront far more serious challenges with clarity and control, from dangerous stunts to personal tragedies. Clooney's willingness to share these stories today also reveals a humility and honesty rare among Hollywood legends. He doesn't glamorize these experiences or shy away from the absurdity of them. Instead, he uses them to provide perspective, offering audiences a window into the human side of a man often seen as larger than life. They remind us that even the most polished stars have moments of vulnerability, curiosity, and experimentation that inform the resilience and wisdom they carry into adulthood. Through these candid reflections, Clooney demonstrates that early indulgences, curiosity, and experimentation need not define a person's future. Rather, they can coexist with discipline, purpose, and a keen understanding of self, a delicate balance that Clooney mastered on his journey from ambitious young actor to global icon. George admitted experimenting with substances, but what experience left him shaken about smoking? Did he lose loved ones because of it? And did it make him realize the real cost of smoking? Let's uncover the details. A family's shadow. George Clooney's life, as glamorous and exciting as it may appear on the surface, has always been profoundly shaped by family, history, and personal loss. Long before he became a Hollywood icon, Clooney was growing up in a family deeply affected by tragedy, illness, and the unpredictable hand of fate. Among the most harrowing challenges that would quietly influence his choices, particularly around health, was the pervasive shadow of lung cancer that had claimed the lives of 8 of his aunts and uncles. These were not just distant relatives, they were individuals who had played parts in shaping the family narrative, the voices of a generation that Clooney both admired and mourned. Perhaps the most prominent and publicly recognized loss was that of his famous aunt, Rosemary Clooney, the beloved singer and actress whose warm voice and charisma had captivated audiences for decades. Rosemary's death in 2002, at the age of 74 from complications related to lung cancer, left a deep imprint on George. He witnessed firsthand the pain, heartbreak, and suffering caused by this relentless disease, not just for the individual, but for the entire family. These experiences, combined with the cumulative effect of losing multiple other relatives to the same illness, created an awareness in Clooney that went beyond mere knowledge. It became a visceral, personal understanding of vulnerability, mortality, and the consequences of lifestyle choices. Clooney has often described his relationship with smoking as complicated, a mixture of attraction, rebellion, and caution shaped by the tragedies around him. On one hand, he knew the dangers better than most. He had seen too many family members taken too soon, felt the grief that rippled through gatherings and holidays, and observed the lingering impact of cancer on those left behind. On the other hand, he was not completely immune to the allure of risk, the subtle cultural pull of smoking that, for many, symbolized sophistication, coolness, or rebellion. This duality, awareness of danger paired with an instinctual curiosity about risk, is part of what makes Clooney's personal story so compelling. Beyond smoking, the larger narrative is one of resilience and consciousness forged through repeated exposure to tragedy. Every loss, every funeral, and every memory of illness contributed to an acute sense of mortality and the importance of making thoughtful life choices. Yet rather than allowing grief to immobilize him, Clooney appears to have used it as a form of quiet guidance. These family tragedies became lessons in vigilance, empathy, and awareness, shaping a man who approaches life with both a deep appreciation for health and an understanding of the fragility of existence. Clooney's awareness of the consequences of lung cancer also intersects with his public persona. As a figure constantly in the spotlight, his experiences and choices offer a subtle reminder to the world about the very real risks of smoking and the legacy of familial health. Yet, the story is never presented as moralizing or didactic. Instead, it is deeply human, a man contending with inherited vulnerability, personal desire, and the weight of memory. Ultimately, these early losses and his complicated relationship with health shaped not only Clooney's choices, but also his empathy, his caution, and his approach to life's unpredictabilities. Family tragedies, while painful, became invisible guides, warnings, lessons, and reminders that life is precious, fleeting, and often shaped by forces beyond our control. Through these experiences, Clooney learned to navigate fame, risk, and personal health with a rare blend of wisdom, awareness, and resilience, forever influenced by the family he loved and the shadows that followed him. He lost several family members to lung cancer because of smoking. But does that mean the ones still alive escaped tragedy? And what challenges did he face alongside them? Now, let's explore George Clooney's daring fight for justice. Courage under fire. George Clooney, widely admired for his magnetic presence on screen, is a man whose real-life courage is as compelling as any of the characters he has portrayed. Beyond the lights of Hollywood, his life is defined not just by fame and fortune, but by a steadfast commitment to causes that extend far beyond personal comfort or celebrity privilege. One particularly striking example of this fearless engagement occurred when Clooney put himself directly in harm's way to advocate for those whose voices are too often silenced, revealing a side of the actor that few in the public fully appreciate. In the volatile border region between Sudan and South Sudan, a humanitarian crisis had been quietly escalating. Civilians faced ongoing conflict, scarcity of resources, and the constant threat of violence. Clooney, unwilling to remain a bystander, joined a protest aimed at raising awareness about the urgent need for international attention and humanitarian aid. The protest, though peaceful in intention, took place in a region known for unpredictability, where tensions between locals, officials, and foreign activists could quickly escalate. Clooney's participation was not merely symbolic. It was a deliberate act of advocacy, undertaken with full knowledge of the risks involved. During the demonstration, Clooney and his father, Nick Clooney, a seasoned journalist with a reputation for integrity and truth-telling, were detained by authorities. Eyewitnesses reported that both men were led away in handcuffs, a striking image of a celebrity and his father standing side by side in the face of legal authority, united by a commitment to a higher cause. The arrest, while brief, was a stark reminder of the dangers inherent in activism even when pursued peacefully. Both George and Nick were released after paying a $100 bail, but the episode underscored the thin line between advocacy. Reflecting on the experience, Clooney admitted it was his first arrest. With a touch of dry humor, he remarked, "Let's hope it's my last." Beneath the lighthearted phrasing, however, lies a deeper understanding of the stakes involved. Clooney, a man accustomed to navigating the pressures of fame, understands that taking a stand for justice can have unpredictable consequences. Even a minor legal entanglement in a foreign country can carry serious repercussions, yet he did not shy away from the risk. The incident illustrates a remarkable trait: Clooney's willingness to prioritize moral obligation over personal safety or convenience, demonstrating that true advocacy often requires courage under pressure. George Clooney's arrest is not an isolated incident, but part of a larger pattern in his life, where he uses his fame to shine a light on urgent social and political crises. From raising awareness about refugee emergencies to challenging oppressive regimes, Clooney repeatedly puts himself in risky and uncomfortable situations to speak for those who have no voice. Unlike many celebrities who stay distant or offer only surface-level support, he embraces the real consequences of activism, using his influence both as protection and as a powerful spotlight to bring attention to issues the world might otherwise ignore. Ultimately, the $100 bail, the temporary detention, and the momentary tension of that day in Sudan, South Sudan, symbolize far more than a minor brush with the law. They represent the courage, commitment, and personal risk inherent in taking a stand for justice. George Clooney's willingness to confront danger alongside his father for the sake of raising awareness about global suffering paints a portrait of a man whose life is defined not merely by cinematic triumphs, but by the moral bravery he exhibits off-screen. In this sense, Clooney reminds the world that true influence is measured not by accolades or box office numbers, but by the courage to act, even when the cost is personal and the outcome uncertain. What do you make of George Clooney's hardships? Do you think he could ever fully recover from them? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.